Hello and welcome to The Best in Heritage. My name is Kevin McLean, speaking to you from Blackfoot Territory in Southern Alberta, Canada. My guest is Roy Jones, co-founder of Discovering 42 Museum. He will be sharing on his and co-founder Natalia Jones's pilot exhibition, Reimagining Reality, which opened in Bodmin, Cornwall in the UK in late 2021, and it's still running now. And last year, their innovative pilot achievement was awarded Sustainable Project of the Year by the International Museums and Heritage Awards. Welcome, Roy. Congratulations on this career high achievement. I want to say how grateful I am to both you and Natalia and your collaborators, as we benefit so very much by being exposed to passionate folks like yourselves. You inspire us every day. Thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you very much. That's really kind of you to say.
So maybe you can start by sharing with us about Discovering 42 and the Reimagining Reality project.
Yeah, so Reimagining Reality is Discovering 42's pilot exhibition. And it was working with a team of local artists and really experimenting with the way that people approach a science exhibition. So we were using waste materials and creating interactive artworks that rather than just teach science, they're kind of more of a catalyst to get people thinking about sustainability and science. I think people can, if they want to learn a lot about science, they can probably go on a YouTube video and find out more about it. We're about inspiring to look at that YouTube video in the first place. So it's a bit of a different approach to having lots of words on boards, more just getting people playing and having a go.
Super impressed, really a lovely sort of exhibition. Everyone is different, like really well thought out.
This is the longest we've been in anywhere. He's just really got into everything. This is very rare for him and his concentration.
I really like the fact that it's hands-on, robust, informative in a differentiated way. So children of our granddaughter's age, 7, have been here and engaged all the time, but it could also be for very much older children.
I was really impressed with how engaging all of these exhibits are. We've been to a lot of different kind of science museums, and I think this is probably the most engaged that the kids have been.
As a parent of an autistic child, this was absolutely perfect. She's had such a good time just exploring at her own pace.
And what was the history of the award-winning Reimagining Reality? Like, what was its rationale? What were its objectives? What were its aims?
Yeah, so Reimagining Reality is a pilot exhibition to try out a different way of putting on an exhibition. We used local artists and created the exhibits out of waste materials, and we used art as a catalyst to get people interested in art and science and sustainability. There's over 20 exhibits made by both us and a team of artists and volunteers. And yeah, it's been really successful.
So when you set out, you had this concept, this idea, and Reimagining Reality project, what was its rationale, its objectives, and its aims, do you think, when you were thinking about it in the beginning?
Us as a family really wanted to work with our community and show that actually we can achieve a lot from the bottom up and on a grassroots scale with a limited budget. Working with our community and finding people that are interested in similar things to us. So yeah, it was kind of really to bring about behavioural change and wider change within our community.
So I guess there's projects going on around the world, other people are doing things, but there was something about what you did that made an impression on that Museums and Heritage Award jury. So what was it, do you think, that stood out about what you're doing?
Yeah, I guess with the classic kind of science museum feel is it's a very kind of slick, and everything's behind plastic, behind wood. You can't really see how it's built. All the screws are hidden, and we've got a very much the opposite feel of that. It's a very homemade feel. You can recognize what was holding things together, and it's quite inspiring space for people to be in, because everything can be touched, everything can be played with, but also you can go, oh, actually I've got one of those hanging in my garage. Oh, I never even thought of using it like that. Kind of a very approachable thing to be interacting with. The other thing is that it was all made from waste materials. Even the walls we built from doors rather than using plywood. And even the ceilings have got different materials, and things like the moldings for the straps on COVID masks, and stuff that is accumulating in our landfill, and people don't even know about it. All the exhibits are made locally and not by your usual kind of people that might make an exhibit for a science museum have got a lot of experience. They're usually artists that are maybe a sculpture, or they're a bike mechanic, or it's very much the community coming together rather than us just getting in people that already know how to do it. And lastly, everything was done with a sustainable mind of, we'd even pick it up with an electric car, and try and minimize all the mileage on everything we were doing.
When I think of what you've done, it makes me think of the word whimsy, that there's this magic human element to it that is really hard to translate, where you have something that's more, high production based, that there's just this real, just this human quality to it. So it sounds beautiful. I feel bad that I can't visit it as much as I wish I could. So far away from me anyways. So I suspect every once in a while you ran up against a problem and you had to problem solve, you had some challenges. What can you kind of remember some of those things?
So I think one of the biggest problems we've got is that the space that we're able to use. So we basically approached several councils to find out, what buildings were available. The one that was available had not been used for about 4 years. And it's kind of set up as 2 meeting rooms with a kind of corridor and a kitchen in between, which isn't the perfect solution for some kind of exhibition. So we had to come up with a clever way of making these essentially a very small space, about 1,400 square feet, into something that people could spend an hour or two in. So we kind of adopted like an IKEA kind of solution of sending you around in circles, and a corridor kind of approach, and everyone has to move in one direction. And the actual benefit that came about that, which we hadn't even considered, was it's been really popular with neurodiverse people, because they struggle in a standard kind of museum setup where there's a lot of things around you, whereas in our setup you're faced with one exhibit, and then you'll turn a corner, there's another exhibit, and there's not too much distraction. So if you're of a kind of a neurodiverse mind where you can't concentrate on lots of things, then it actually a big added bonus there.
I bet in the end, people didn't even realize how large of a space they had gone through either. If you had to ask them, they probably felt it was a lot bigger than it was. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of people call it the TARDIS, because from the outside, it's this little, essentially like a village hall kind of space. But once you get inside, you're lost in a maze.
So I'm interested, like when you have folks that are being exposed now to these ideas that they may not or may have thought was available to them, and approaches to that circular economy, have you witnessed or observed any changes in actions by individuals or by your community, and what makes you hopeful that what you're presenting to people is resonating on a day-to-day level with folks?
Yeah, I think that kind of homemade feel has really been quite inspiring for people that are visiting. We get a lot of people coming saying, I want to make this at home. Like, how can I do that? Where did you get that bit from? And, there's also kind of lots of schools coming and wanting to kind of build stuff similar in their playgrounds. But then we've also, in the wider community, kind of started a bit of a movement of people kind of maybe considering their waste more. Since we've been set up, Bodmin has become a plastic-free community through the Surface Against Sewage campaigns. There's also now a sustainable fashion show being set up. And there definitely seems to be a bit of a ripple effect kind of ebbing out from since we started.
I think it was really good because it reused lots and lots of recycled bits.
You look around and you can think of things you could even do in your own home. Like, I really like the plastic boxes, and then the light is shining through it, so it makes quite a good divider.
So that has to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, that's kind of the goal, isn't it? Kind of inspire people and show them that they have the power to make changes in their communities.
So what is the advantage of creating something from nothing or with nothing, but grassroots energy and passion to make a difference, as to opposed to those organizations which have all these resources and capital that they can bring to bear? Like, what do you think the advantage is that you have?
Yeah, I think with large resources also comes with great risk. So it's harder for a large organization to do something like we've done, because there's a lot more at stake for them. There's a reputation. There is, a certain thing that people expect of them, and to change that takes a lot of courage. Whereas if you're small and unknown, then there's very little risk for that. If we popped up and it was not a success and disappeared, no one would be none the wiser. But yeah, the beauty is that our ideas can stay true to where they started, because a small team working quickly to create something. We built this exhibition in about 2.5 months, after about a year's worth of planning, and that's very powerful when you're wanting to. You've got a vision, you want to create it. You're not going for a board of people who are watering down your ideas.
So if there was something you wanted cultural and public organizations or individuals are wanting to make or impact social change or to consider from your efforts, what would that message be? Like, so here you have a platform and you can share with all these heritage and cultural organizations that are wanting to impact social change. What is the message that you want to share with them?
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 takeaways that we feel we've learned from this project. One is that actually we felt it was a big risk using waste materials, but that's the number one thing everyone says they really like about it. I said, it doesn't matter how big this museum gets, keep that. So, I mean, that I think we've proven that actually the public are receptive to creating stuff in a different way. It doesn't need to be this clean, glossy look anymore. You can be a bit more gritty and a bit more funky in the way you approach stuff if it means that you can hit a more sustainable outcome.
So I'm Jan O'Highway. I do all sorts of different stuff, anything that really catches the fancy. The last few years I've been working a lot with glass. It was a follow-on from working with ceramics. I started working just with the glass, which is the main substance of a glaze, partly because the colours are just so extraordinarily beautiful. There's a constant element of experimentation. I love putting things into the kiln and getting them really, really hot, 800 or 900 degrees, and seeing what happens to them. I do like very much working with recycled materials and using our imagination to see, what could you do with a bit of old pipe which has got a bendy bit? To develop something out of what's already here and it would otherwise be thrown away and discarded. That's important to me. Probably because I was born in the war and everything was terribly precious. We didn't throw anything away. There wasn't the amazing consumer society we have now. I'm making a glass installation for Discovering 42. It's a very interesting project for me because it's making me experiment and really good for me in terms of my ideas about what's possible. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking, can I do this? But really it's very exciting to be doing something which is a real development from the glass work that I've been doing for the last few years. It's a great project.
My name's Jack Styling. I'm an artist, maker and inventor. I got into it from basically being a bike mechanic and spending half my time doodling. I had a lifelong passion for dismantling stuff, and basically at the core of any sort of mechanical problem is a scientific principle that goes with it. It was my way of combining art with mechanics in small sculptures to medium sculptures. Now it's got bigger and better. Discovering 42 seems like the perfect opportunity to get people involved in mechanisms, get people to understand a bit more about movement, and make it more accessible by using recycled materials, by seeing tin cans in a different light. Pre-existing materials, especially old objects from bygone eras, they've got a history for themselves, and they have their own story, which you can incorporate in a piece, or they can kind of speak for themselves. A lot of the people that I get looking at my pieces notice the story of the things that are used in them, or something that they would have recognised from their childhood. And then, yeah, you can kind of use those as leverage for that to get them interested in a mechanism and why it's moving and what it's moving. And it kind of adds to a general character of the piece.
And also, I feel that our approach is actually to avoid modern technology as much as we can, avoid those touch screens, AR, and all that kind of approach that maybe if you're thinking of putting on an interactive exhibition, is probably the first suggestion in the room is like, oh, why don't we have a virtual reality headset? And we feel that actually, as a society, our children are getting too much screen time, and parents are trying to look for stuff that isn't that. And if you can offer something that is different, and actually goes back to that kind of more hands-on traditional style of interaction and play, that's now really appealing for people, because it's really hard to compete against a multi-million-pound computer game. If you've got even a very modest budget for your exhibition compared to what people are using and experiencing on a daily basis, it's going to be really hard to compete with that. But if you can offer them something they haven't got at home and you can't get easily, and that is that kind of more traditional hands-on, turning things and seeing stuff go, I think that is actually probably a better selling point in this modern society.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure to incorporate tech.
Yeah.
And that comes at a lot of costs and challenges too. So thanks for sharing that and the success that you've had with that tangible, interactive kind of approach too. So is there anything that you want to add before we sign off? Maybe I didn't ask the right question to get that response back from you.
Yeah, I mean, something else that we've been experimenting with is doing workshops to upskill our visitors and community and kind of empower them to make a difference in their daily lives, move them away from relying upon consumerism, and showing them, for example, how to make Christmas presents like robotic eyes and fairy lights by themselves, teaching them how to solder and basic engineering. That's been really popular. A lot of people are now kind of taking on their own little projects and then sending us videos on the Facebook page of the things they've made through the workshop. So that's been really exciting.
All right. Well, I just want to say how grateful I am to you and Natalia and everyone else that's there in your community that's been supporting you for the great work that you're doing. And I hope that perhaps I see some kind of wave and ripple that just keeps going out, and then I hear about you in the future. And I'm just grateful for everything that you're doing. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really kind of you.